Hi there, and welcome to Canceling COVID. I'm Tanya Riven. So glad to be a part of your Tuesday morning. Yeah, working out a few kinks. We had a break last week, but certainly thrilled to be here with you. And today the focus is about mental health. Again, mental wellness. July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And a great conversation coming up with not Doctor, I got Dr. Trasha Black for sure. That conversation is coming, but also with Fonda Bryant, who is just out doing amazing things and keeping the conversation on the national level, as well as taking care of what's happening here locally. Again, real resources, as well as real talk, real people here to keep you informed because we care about our community. I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Groundwater Solutions, groundwater-solutions.org, 704-596-0505, 704-596-0505. So a lot happening, and we know that our community tends to be the one that's always impacted and always dealing with what's been happening when it comes to the whole issue of, you name it, whether it's finances, the economy, whether it's education, whether it's social, the impact is just tremendous. And Dr. Trasha Black, she is, of course, one of our experts. Her specialty is a minority health and a minority or mental wellness. So I've got her joining this conversation. Good morning, and thank you for taking the time to join us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, you're with us every Tuesday. We're so grateful for that, grateful for your support. So it's National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mhm.
And, you know, my next guest, which I pre-recorded, talked about the impact of suicides that's happening in our community alone. We talked about why this awareness month is necessary and trying to remove some of the, I guess, what we've had in our community for generations, the stigma around talking
That
about this.
stigma. Hmm.
Yeah. So, this is where you really get cooking because this is your area of
This is
expertise.
my heart right here.
Yeah, absolutely. So kinda weigh in on, what people should be doing, especially as a part of, Minority Mental Health Awareness Month.
Well, I would say, first of all, let me say I love Fonda. She and
Uh-huh,
I have done many programs together, and she is very supportive of the
absolutely.
call of mental health and awareness in our community and across the nation.
Uh-huh,
I think the most important thing that we need to do is acknowledge that mental health and wellness must be a major issue and concern in our community. We need
right.
to have dialogue. We need to have programs. I was talking to someone just this morning, another therapist. I actually had a very long conversation with the pastor this
Uh-huh,
morning as well about, what are you doing inside the church to build the people who are sitting in the pews? We
right.
know that we all have areas of brokenness. We all have a brain. Therefore, we all have mental health. Sometimes we will have programs and we'll start dialoguing about mental illness and mental health awareness. And some people will say, oh, no, I don't have that. Well, you've got a brain, that means you've got mental health, just like you
Absolutely.
have a body and you have physical health. It
Uh-huh,
is a fact. We all have it. So we all have to address how well we're taking care of it, how well we are addressing what we think, what we feel, and what we do. That is really what mental health is all about. The patterns of ways that and life kind of beats us up, and we start thinking that life is scary or
yeah.
life is hard and it's not worth living. Those thoughts they begin to impact our feelings, and then when our feelings change, it changes the way that we act and behave, how we interact with other people. Whether we're confrontational, whether we're aggressive, whether we're passive, and we let folks just kind of walk all over us.
So
That's
let me
all
jump in
related to
here.
mental health.
And so you mentioned that this is your passion. Are you aware of any special events that are being held this month? In response to that, you acknowledge Fonda, and yeah, she's doing some amazing work as well. And clearly, you're working in our community to address that and to heighten awareness.
Mhm.
Anything special that you guys got happening over there around this?
Well, we're always doing outreach events in education. So this month is no different from any month for us. We're
Okay.
constantly hosting events in the community, partnerships, typically with houses of faith and
Uh-huh.
organizations that serve people to get in those organizations and talk. We have not targeted anything specifically for minority mental health awareness, but now that I'm here, that's something we absolutely have to do.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned, one of the points that you already brought up was the houses of faith, and that's a conversation that we kind of dwell on. I want to shout out Living Waters, though,
Hmm.
Joan Ben and all the great work that she does, and she's got her conference coming up this year. I'm a part of that
Hmm. Hmm.
because, again, I try to be transparent with what we're dealing with, and I made a commitment to normalize the conversation around therapy and mental health, but the whole idea of having a separate month set aside to focus on minorities, there may be some people there saying, well, why is it necessary? I mean, so many people are dealing with mental health. What would you say to that question?
I think historically, we definitely people of color believe that things like suicide and depression and all the other areas of mental illness don't impact us.
Mhm.
Myself, even being in the profession that I am, I think I had stereotypes that, well, that's not something that we do. And I had to learn early on, about 20 years ago. I was working on a college campus, and I would be responding to suicide attempts on the campus.
Wow.
And the majority of the students that I responded to were students of color. And
Mm.
it challenged everything that I believed about mental health, suicidal ideation. It really made clear to me that life happens to all of us, and we have the same responses as any other culture. And so I think it's important in minority communities that we all are aware of that, and that we get information about it, so that we don't all sit in the dark, especially when our children are crying out and we think, they can't, they don't mean that, they're not hurting that bad. And many times they really are, and
So,
we
Dr.
ignore
Black,
it.
what would you like to see in addition to just the 1 month of acknowledging minority mental health awareness? What else should be done? What else could be provided?
Well, I think one of the things that we are doing is really working on integrated healthcare. And
Okay.
so when you are at your physician's office, you're going in for your annual physical, you're going in because you have a sore throat, that someone's asking you about your mental health. How are you feeling? What are you struggling with in your thoughts? That those questions and screenings are taking place. I think in the schools, when children are enrolled, or at some point, there should be an annual evaluation of how your child is doing mentally, with all the stress that is associated with education, especially now post COVID, or in the
Absolutely.
midst of COVID. We need to be aware that life causes damage to our mental health, and we've got to have strategies to combat.
Well, as you were saying that, I was thinking about what just happened with clearly all these mass shootings, whether it was in Buffalo or Uvalde or whether it was in Highland Park, Illinois. And it's interesting to hear the interviews, and they talk about the PTSD. And we've been talking about this for a while. It's not normal to see someone shot, not to hear the gunfire. And I really wish that it didn't get to this point before more people start talking about these are our children that are experiencing this in our community with all this violence. And then you're sending them off to school and expecting them to function and to
Mhm,
learn without
mhm,
giving them any type of attention or addressing the issue. So, one of the things I would like to add in is to normalize it and make it, especially in some of these schools that have really high crime areas, to actually conduct these conversations, some type of mental health wealth check,
mhm,
just some way to make it a part of their daily structure in school to address how they're feeling, what their thoughts
mhm,
are, and
mhm,
to pay close attention. I also agree for our community, it's unique. Some of the things that we dealt with from our enslaved ancestors up until now, certainly has been a different journey. And I think that, a lot more focus certainly would help. And
yeah.
it is much needed.
Yeah, I think there is a depression. I know that there's a depression associated with generational oppression.
Right.
And we can all agree that generational oppression has occurred for African Americans, and
Mhm.
we've got to begin to have those kind of conversations. That what is the toll that it's taken on us as a people, and so I really encourage that. We hear about these shootings and other things that happen. Children who commit suicide.
And, looks like it
I,
dropped.
yeah,
There you
I'm
go.
sorry.
That's
I
okay.
hear that people will say, well, they were fine. There were no signs. Well, really, what you're saying is we don't know the signs.
Thank you for saying that. Every time I hear that, it just bothers me, and I always say, "There were signs, you just missed them." The
Hmm.
same thing with the shooters that are involved. There were signs, you
We
just
just
missed.
missed them.
When I hear a family member say, "Oh, he was fine," but then you come back and say, "Well, he threatened the family, he had knives."
Hmm.
Really? You're just saying that to be saying it? And that's not
Hmm.
fair to the rest of the people, especially the lives that were lost.
Well,
But
I
the
think
whole
it's education. A lot of the
right.
awareness that needs to take place. There's a evidence based course called Mental Health First Aid, and it
Mhm.
lets the lay person know. You don't have to have a degree in psychology or social work to
Mhm.
know what the basic signs that someone is struggling. So we
Right.
need to make those signs. You know, really make it known throughout our community so we know what we're looking at. And
Yeah.
then what do you do when you see those signs? Because some of us may know and we have concerns, but we don't really know what the next step is. If I have a concern about my child or I have a concern about my neighbor, who do I go to? Where do I even
And that's a great segue to even Dr. Trasha Black's comment about being educated and knowing where to go. Looks like we dropped her. She's dropping in off. We're gonna wrap things up, but I was saying that that was a great segue because what Fonda Bryant does is, of course, she teaches a QPR class that
Mhm.
identifies signs as well. So as we wrap things up, real quick, Dr. Black, of course, groundwater-solutions.org. We know the impact that COVID has had on the community and certainly around this canceling COVID conversation, talking about mental health, mental
Mhm.
wellness, and just making sure, as I always say, check on your neighbor. Groundwater-solutions.org, 704-596-0505. Anything else that you would like to add as we wrap things up?
I would. I'd like to say, and we talked about this with COVID-19,
Mhm.
have a toolbox. I made a suggestion early on that the places in your area where you could get tested or you can get your vaccines and have those numbers, programmed in your phone. I would
Uh-huh.
say the same thing about your mental health. Know the places in your community that are available when you have concerns about someone that you love, so that you have it on speed dial. You don't have to, in a crisis, try to figure out am I going to reach out to. Know those resources in advance, know the signs, and be immediately responsive when you see
Great.
immediately responsive.
Great, great stuff. Dr. Trasha Black, Groundwater Solutions, thank you so much. And thanks
Thank
for
you.
juggling your schedule to continuously support this effort as well. Enjoy your
Absolutely.
day.
You
All
too.
right.
Bye.
Absolutely. As we continue. So we've had to maneuver and kind of put stuff together because we all have busy schedules and it is summertime. People are on vacation or doing whatever they need to do. But that doesn't take away from our commitment to bring you this information. And we will continue to do that. So, as I see people out and about in the community, it's glad and it's good to know that this effort is not in vain, that people are listening, hopping on. You feel free to share your comments. We are grateful that for anyone that tunes in, just letting you know about what is happening in our community so we can keep the conversation going. Thank you to Atrium Health as I continue to work with them as a COVID vaccine ambassador to get the information out to you as well. And of course, be mindful of what's happening around us because we're going to head into the fall real soon. Of course, we've got August, and boys, it's been hot for the month of July. But as we head into August, soon our children will be heading back to school. So you know what that means as well. They'll be back in close proximity in large groups. And there will be a lot of conversation about what's happening with the virus. And now there's another variant, Omicron. I think it's like a BA5 or something that is expected to impact us as we move closer to the fall season. And there'll be a lot of conversation around whether that booster shot that you received and whether you will need another one so that it will have an impact on the latest variant. Now, with that said, I don't want to kind of confuse you here, but I did talk to Fonda Bryant, and originally Dr. Black was going to come on after her. So I'm getting ready to share the conversation where I had to pre-record her because she really, really wanted to talk about um, the Mental Health Awareness Month for minorities, and she's working where she is really busy right now. As a matter of fact, she's on the national platform for this month. I saw her, if you go to Yahoo, an interview there. She's kind of all over the place, and she deserves it. She is totally committed and working really hard. So now I'll bring up my conversation with Fonda Bryant. Please don't be confused because I actually started out with her and continued. But most importantly, this is the story that we need to see. And hi there, and welcome to Canceling COVID. Thank you so much for joining us every week as we bring you great information that keeps you informed. Of course, as we continue to deal with this pandemic, Canceling COVID now around for over a year, almost 2 years, still going at it, still keeping you informed with real people, real resources, and real conversation. And it's always a pleasure to talk with you, working with Atrium Health as one of their COVID vaccine ambassadors as well, always making sure that we get relevant and updated information. Also looking to bring you information as it evolves that relates to our community. I think that's a mouthful right there, which is so important. We could never do this without our sponsors. Thank you to Groundwater Solutions, groundwater-solutions.org, 704-596-0505, 704-596-0505. So I know you're enjoying this hot weather. I know you're enjoying family and friends. It's like the breakout, man. It's something every day, and I love it as well. We get a chance, kind of like to make up for lost time is like what it seems like. My calendar's always full. But the best part about it is you can go into these environments informed if someone's not wearing a mask and you prefer to wear one. People seem to be more respectful. Also, if you're around someone and they're showing some type of symptoms or signs, I don't think anyone's offended. I was around someone yesterday and they were coughing and I said, hey, is she sick? Oh, no, she's okay. All right. Well, I'm just going to put my mask on just to make sure. And that's where we've evolved. We've got a lot of work to do, but it's just great that we can have this conversation and people know without getting angry and fighting back. You know, the pandemic has really taken a toll on us in so many ways. And I always talk about mental wellness, and I really push for making sure that we start normalizing the conversation around therapy. And no one can have these conversations not in Mecklenburg County, that's for sure, without bringing on my next guest. And she is pretty incredible, getting all-time national attention for the work that she does. And she's sincere and true and has been doing it for quite some time. I am honored to know her and glad to bring her on board, talking about Miss Fonda Bryant. Hey, Fonda, and good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to have you as well. So I just wanted to hop in real quick. July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and we've been dealing with this pandemic now for over 2 years. The good news is right now, Charlotte is still, or Mecklenburg County, went back to the low zone. We were at moderate. And so it looks like cases are still working in our favor for now. I'm sure that could turn at any moment. But when we talk about stress and everything that deals with mental wellness, we've got this Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm just trying to figure out, why is it important to single out minorities and have a whole month to just focus on us?
Well, we really do as advocates. We focus on everyone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. But Minority Mental Health Month is very important because B.B. Moore Campbell, who is named after, was very instrumental in helping us come along because of her own family dealing with mental health issues. And just like in the Black culture, for the most part, we always sweep it up under the rug. We don't talk about it. And when you look at the stats, what are going on with Black people and people of color with mental health and suicide, it really is alarming. I mean, Black males right now have the highest rate of suicide out of any ethnic group. That's Native Americans. That's Native Americans, Asians, Polynesians, Samoans. Black males have the highest rate of suicide. And for Black people, we die every 4.5 hours. So the thing is that if we don't do a better job on the front end of educating people, early detection, we're going to continue to see the suicide stats rise for people of color.
So let me jump in, because that right there alone is a pretty powerful number. You're saying every 4 hours a Black male is succumbing to suicide?
No, for Black people as a whole. Okay. Every 4.5 hours, we're dying by suicide.
That's still a very powerful number.
It is. Yes. But Black males have the highest rate of suicide out of any ethnic group, and that's alarming. That's alarming.
Okay, I apologize. I misunderstood
that's okay.
that. For Black people, no, that's okay. Every 4.5 hours, there's a Black person that's committing suicide, and the Black male leads in the suicide rate right now in this country, which kind of leads to my next question: is what makes the struggle for minorities, the mental wellness struggle, so unique? I mean, obviously, we know the trauma from our enslaved ancestors, but what else makes our struggles more unique than others?
Poverty, racism, and also the fact that how we've been raised from culture, from generation to generation. There's a stat that says 63% of Black people believe a mental health condition is a personal sign of weakness. I truly believe that's higher. I truly believe that's higher. And then when you think about our culture with religion, we've always been taught, pray about it. Don't claim it. Give it to God. It's a sign of weakness. I saw two pastors several months ago, two pastors here in Charlotte, that put up on their Instagram that if we just thought positive, we wouldn't be bothered with depression. That was their mentality. So when you have that, and imagine being a part of their church.
Right.
And going to them and saying, hey, I'm struggling with depression and anxiety. And they say, hey, you know what? If you just think positive, you won't have depression. So those are the kind of hurdles we have to go up against. And I'm going to tell you something else. I work at a high school as a COVID tracer. And one of the things that I have heard, especially from Black students, is, Miss Fonda, when I talk to my parents about struggling, they're like, what do you have to be sad about? What do you have to be depressed about? Especially if they come from a home where there's a nice car, they live in a nice area. So if we don't do a better job on the front end with early detection and helping these young people, because if we don't have mentally healthy youth, we're not going to have mentally healthy adults. And that terrible cycle will
just continues on
and on from generation to generation. Because I look at my mother, who is 78, will be 79 next month. And one thing I have come to realize is that generation of late 60s, 70s, and 80s, they don't have compassion for their children who have mental health issues.
Because they don't know, but it's probably for lack of knowledge and understanding, because no one is really got them familiar with that. And you have raised some very valid points. It is kind of heartbreaking to hear that some pastors are still saying that in this day and time in 2022, just think positive. And the children coming to you. I love the point that you made, though, about we've got these youth that if their mental wellness is not on point, then they're going to turn into some adults that are dealing with the same struggle. But one of the things we also wanted to talk about, you highlight the suicide rate, is the launch of 988, which is the equivalent to 911. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, suicide is a global health crisis. It's not a personal character flaw. So we are dealing with at least 125 Americans every day that die by suicide. 17 veterans a day are taking their own life. And then we have close to 4,000 Americans attempting every day. And that's just in the US. So they decided that we needed a quicker response to be able to get people help, to be able to remember a number that's not 10 digits down to 3. It's a great thing to a certain extent because people can remember 988. But my issue is, as an advocate and a suicide survivor, is that people will still, I'm afraid, will get the numbers confused from 911 to 988. And there's also something else too. I read a report that said that when youth are in crisis, young people, only 5% call the National Suicide Hotline. The rest text. So that text number is just as important. But I'm glad to see something being done, that the 988, I'm hoping that people will reach out, because the 800-273-8255 number will still be in effect. But again, we need to do a better job on the front end.
Well, I love the fact, and I talked about it even before it launched. It launches on July 16th, so it's coming really soon, and I have been talking about it in the past. And the idea of just 3 digits and the text number, all that sees at least the higher ups or people involved are trying to adapt to the next generation. But how can the community get involved? We've talked about these numbers. We've talked about what's happening. Certainly, what is it that we can do to be more attentive and supportive of our youth and just people in general? Oftentimes I hear when people commit suicide, I didn't see it coming, but I've always been of the belief there are always signs. You may have missed it, but there's always some type of sign. So what can the community do?
I think people, again, as I'm always preaching, get educated. I do a free training, 2 hours on Saturday. And the time you watch a movie, you can be trained how to save someone's life, to recognize those signs, to listen, and to be able to get them help. It is called QPR. Question, persuade, refer, suicide prevention training. In 2 hours, as I said, anyone can learn how to save someone's life and prevent the tragedy of suicide. So actually, when I picked the date for this month, I had forgotten that we're going to be launching the 988 on Saturday, July 16th. That'll be the same day as my training. From 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, you can learn how to save a life. Once you get finished with the training, you get a certificate. You are a certified gatekeeper, which means you know how to save someone's life. You know what to do to get them help. You also get a resource card, and you get a QPR booklet that kind of goes back through the training a little bit. But that training is invaluable, and it saves lives. And the great thing is like I said, anyone can prevent the tragedy of suicide, from a youth to adults. And I'm very proud at how many youth I've trained as well as adults, but more people need to be trained. Everyone needs to be trained.
So how do they enroll? I put the information up, but how do they contact or get enrolled in the program?
Well, what they do is they can reach out to me on Facebook under Fonda Bryant. They can reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram as Proud Mom 72, and I will send them the link and the flyer, because my flyer has my email address on it. So they can reach out to me. There's no registration, but I do require them being on time and taking that entire 2-hour training.
So maybe you could send it to the pastors that you saw post on social media. Hey, you might want to share this with your membership, your congregation, as an as another option. There are ways to express, without being rude, because that would be a great way, a great outlet for them as well. Now let's talk about how people can get involved. Besides your QPR training, Anything else that we can do, or anything else you would like to share with the community?
Well, we have great organizations here in Charlotte and across in our state that help people with mental health issues. Again, get educated. Reach out to NAMI Charlotte, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Charlotte. We have Cabarrus County. We also have NAMI North Carolina at the state level. Mental Health America of Central Carolinas is another great resource to reach out to learn about mental health disorders. American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is another entity. People need to realize that mental health is health. Mental health is physical health. And as you said, reaching out to the pastors, which I have, and I've trained a good many. But again, pastors need to take the training, because I see that a lot of our issues in the Black culture can start kind of at the church because of the way we've been raised. And we need to change that mentality that mental health is a demon, that we're crazy, we're nuts, we're psycho. We're not. And I think that's where we need to start. Education is key.
Fonda Bryant, thank you so much. And you're right, the churches are the epicenter of the Black community, and to get them all on board as far as getting the word out, the culture, where there's politics, you name it, we tend to go to the house of worship to get leadership and guidance. So I appreciate you, always in the struggle, always working hard, relentless. I admire that, Fonda. I appreciate you so much.
Appreciate it.
And thank you. And again, if people want to reach out to you, they should go to your social media handles. And one of them is Proud Mom. How's what? Look, Proud Mom.
Proud Mom 72 on Twitter and Instagram, and they can reach out to me on Facebook as Fonda Bryant. But again, education is the key to stopping suicide and learning more about mental health. I mean, it's just, we got to do it. Too many people are dying.
Simple. Yeah,
it's that simple.
Yes, you get educated. Well, thanks again. We'll put this back up July 16th, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. the QPR training. I want to say thank you. I've got to get myself scheduled to get in your training as well. I'm going to admit it. Every time Saturdays are usually hectic, 1 o'clock. Now, if you get me early in the morning, I'm good. But when we start reaching around 12 noon, it's like, I got it there. But I'm going to get there. I promise you that.
All right. I'm counting on it.
Absolutely. And thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to Ms. Fonda Bryant. Thank you for your patience as we work through this. We're a little beyond 11:30, so time for us to move out of the way. Of course, as always, life's challenges make you better, not bitter. I'm Tanya Rivens. Thank you so much for sharing, letting people know that we're here, still holding this conversation. Be well, be safe, be alert, and check on your neighbor. I'll see you on Saturday, Sounds of Inspiration, kicking off at 10 a.m. Spend your Saturday with me for inspiration and information at Praise 100.9 FM. Again, thank you for joining us. Have a great day, everyone. And thanks for supporting Canceling COVID. I'm Tanya Rivens. Take care.